for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is a certified hypnotherapist and hypnosis instructor, no other than Mr. Deane Benninghoven.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for having me on your show.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Dean, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. I'm a hypnotherapist in Washington State. Uh, I mostly work with other doctors and therapists as part of a team. I work with clients for a range of issues, but most of what I do is working with early childhood trauma and PTSD. And again, I do that as part of a larger team. So a therapist would refer someone to me for a few sessions, and then they go back and we just kind of work away at mostly the trauma responses that people carry around, like anxiety, worry, fear, ruminating thoughts, and well, there's a host of things, but mostly that type of thing.
Mr. Dean Benninghoven, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. How do you define therapeutic hypnosis and how does it differ from stage hypnosis?
Oh, what a great question. Well, stage hypnosis is for entertainment. It's important, I think, to understand that hypnotic states are natural states, a part of your everyday experience. So, if you've ever been deep in a daydream, Daniel, that is a hypnotic state. When you're driving the car and you get where you're going and you realize, whoa, I'm here already. I hope I stopped for all the red lights. That is a hypnotic state. If you ever have those shower thoughts that pop into your mind, that's also a hypnotic state. States where your body kind of knows what it's doing and your brain is able to roam a little bit, those are hypnotic states. Writing, reading, when you're visualizing what you're seeing in that wonderful book you're reading. Uh, and as you fall asleep at night, you pass through what's called the hypnagogic state as you fall asleep. And when you wake up, you're in the hypnopompic state. So it's important to recognize that I'm not doing anything to anybody. I'm not bringing something from me and giving it to you. You already have this state that we call hypnosis. You just don't call it hypnosis when you experience it on a day to day basis. So, therapeutic hypnosis is using that state, the same state that, people go into when they're on the stage. That's hypnosis too. But here we're using the very, very special qualities of that state to affect profound and lasting change to our patterns. So, all of us have patterns that we might like to work on, might like to change. And hypnosis is the tool that allows us to do that. Everybody who comes to see me really wants the same thing. They want a quiet mind. They think they're coming for hypnosis, but really they're coming for the peace of mind, the quietness in those moments where they didn't have it before. And hypnosis is really just the tool we use to get that. So, using the hypnotic state in a therapeutic way to change those old patterns.
Beautifully articulated, Mr. Dean. Very well said. What inspired you to pursue a career in hypnotherapy?
Another wonderful question. So, over 20 years ago, I was doing something completely different. I was in a Swiss watchmaking school, Rolex certified school, learning how to become a watchmaker. It was a 2 year program. I was about a year and 8 months through the program, and somebody ran through a red light and T boned my truck. Badly injured my neck, left me with chronic pain. The career that I was planning was gone. Uh, and, 20 years ago, they would just sort of back a truck full of opioids up to your door and tell you you could help yourself. That was at that peak time of that. And that, I can tell you, is a model that doesn't work for real, long lasting pain relief. It causes so many problems. It did for me anyway. And so when I moved away from that uh, traditional pain management model, I was desperate to find a way to feel better. And I happened to read an article about them doing neck surgeries on people using only hypnosis, no other kind of anesthetic. And I thought, aha, if they can do that, I should be able to do something about this pain that I'm in. And so I couldn't afford to go to a hypnotherapist like myself because I hadn't worked because of this accident. I called around and I really just wanted somebody to teach me how to do self hypnosis because all hypnosis at the end of the day is self hypnosis. It's a willing state. So I wanted somebody, though, to teach me how do you get into that state? How do you cross over from a wakeful state to a hypnotic state with intention? Um, that's not really the model that most hypnotists work with. They don't want to just do one session and teach you how to do it and then send you on your way. It's not a great business model, right? You got to come back a few times. Um, so I went to the library and I got both books they had about hypnosis and I started to read more and understand more and practice every day. Practicing self hypnosis every day. Uh, After about 4 months, I had was able to manage that physical pain to the point where I could start getting my life back, doing things like yoga, doing some more stretching and other kinds of exercises, and that helped tremendously. Anybody who's had an accident like that, who deals with chronic pain, there's a host of emotional uh, issues that usually come along with that, like grief for the person you used to be, anger at the unfairness of the situation, frustration with people who can't understand if you don't have an injury that's really obvious for everybody to see, then if you look fine, you should be fine. And that's a whole other sort of frustration. And all of these things, this emotional part of it, is where I focused a lot of my healing on myself. And I recognize that these emotional states, they also come from the subconscious mind. And whenever we do hypnosis, we're dealing with the subconscious part of the mind. That's everything that's below the level of your conscious awareness, all of the patterns that make you, your life story. And all of these patterns came from your lived experiences. So some are good, some bad, some neutral. But from those lived experiences, you subconsciously are learning how to respond and how to move through the world. This happens principally when we're very, very young. And those patterns and responses that you pick up tend to be the ones that you carry into your adulthood. And so hypnosis is a really great way to shift and change some of those patterns, some of those emotional responses, because that all takes place below the level of consciousness.
Mr. Dean, can you explain how hypnosis works to facilitate therapeutic change?
Yes. So if you think about sort of the model of the mind as we understand it, you've got your subconscious mind here. Your conscious mind, for our purposes with hypnosis, is really just the lens that's telling your subconscious mind which of these patterns, these responses are appropriate for any given situation. Now, it's important to understand for hypnosis that an easy way to think about it, Daniel, is kind of in between the conscious and the subconscious mind. There's this other part of the mind that's very important called the critical faculty of the mind. The critical faculty of the mind acts like a guard. It protects these patterns, this way of you're doing things subconsciously, and it only allows information into the subconscious mind that agrees with what we already think, feel, and believe. So, this is part of where our confirmation bias comes from. So, if you're a person who, as a child has told you're not smart, for example, uh, then you accept that as your pattern, right? And then for the rest of your life, any situation where you might make a mistake, the reference isn't just, oh, it's this situation where I made a mistake. The reference is, oh, that's right, I'm stupid. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Mr. Dean, can you
And so,
explain? Yes, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. So when you're in hypnotic states, that guardian part goes offline. And that's really, really important because that's what hypnosis is, that's why it works, that's how it works. Sometimes the conscious mind does need to communicate information into the subconscious. So the mechanism that it does that is through daydreaming or uh, times when that guard is offline. And so when you're in an induced hypnotic state with somebody like me or another hypnotist or hypnotherapist, the guard is down and we can access the patterns themselves and start to create change. So, anyway, does
So,
that make
Mr.
sense?
Dean, what makes sense? What are some common misconceptions about hypnotherapy that would you like to clarify?
Well, most importantly, uh, you're always going to be in control when you're in a hypnotic state. You could choose, if you wanted to reject what I might be saying to you when you're in hypnosis. I mean, you're paying for the time, so it doesn't make sense, but you could choose to. Um, you're always going to be alert and aware of your surroundings. That's something that a lot of people think I'm going to be like asleep when I'm in hypnotic states. And that's not the case at all. If you fall asleep, I call that an expensive nap. And nobody wants to take an expensive nap. I don't really let people fall asleep, but your eyes are closed, your body's relaxed, you're in that kind of drifty, dreamy state for most people. Uh, Many people feel sort of heavy in their body and uh, always aware of what's going on. Sometimes, if I need to get up and walk around in the office when somebody's in a trance, I'll say, I'm going to walk around the office. You'll hear me doing that because I know they're going to be alert and aware. And, the subconscious part of the mind never sleeps. So, subconsciously, or I should say, when you're sound asleep, if you hear a loud noise, it's actually your subconscious mind that's detecting that. The role of all of these patterns of the subconscious mind is to keep you safe. So it won't allow you to do anything that is unsafe. Uh, I can't make people do things they don't want to do. So if you really didn't want to quit smoking and you thought a hypnotist was going to be able to zap you into quitting smoking, uh, that's not right. So it's always a willing state. It's always a partnership back and forth between the hypnotist and the client.
Very well said, Mr. Dean. Very well said. How do you determine if a client is a good candidate for hypnotherapy?
That's a great question. Most people are good candidates for hypnotherapy. There are some medical conditions where it's not advised, but um, for most people, if they're ready to make the change, that's really what it's all about. For things like smoking, quitting certain drugs or alcohol, those things always have to be precipitated by a visit with a doctor, so that we know it's safe for you drinking in particular. If you're ready to quit, you might need some medication or something to help you through that initial period of withdrawal. um, for things like PTSD and the trauma responses, uh, like I say, that person has been referred to me by their psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, counselor. And so we're kind of working together as a team. I might not ever talk to that person, but that person is always aware that their client is coming to see me. So for the work I do, most of these people are sort of pre-screened. And what's interesting about it is many of those people are shocked to find themselves in a hypnotist's office to do some therapeutic work. They never made that connection between hypnosis and therapy, but uh, it's actually something that works really, really well and relatively quickly. I usually will sit with someone 3 to 5 times to resolve trauma responses like anxiety. Um, it's not that we get rid of anxiety. Anxiety is actually your body's defense mechanisms turned on too much and too much of the time. So we can help you get that in an appropriate, as an appropriate response, not when you're sitting home safe and secure. So stress, uh, anxiety, as described by the caregivers who send those clients to me, I have a very good track record of helping people manage that.
Mr. Dean, let's talk about training and methodology. What kind of training and certification have you completed in hypnotherapy?
Well, I am a certified licensed hypnotist here in Washington State. That means that I'm a hypnotherapist. That's the designation from the state. I'm also a certified hypnosis instructor, and that certification comes through the National Guild of Hypnotists. That's the oldest certifying body in the country. And I've been a member of the National Guild for several years now. Um, and so everybody who goes through my training program will be certified through the National Guild of Hypnotists. They'll have a certification from the Guild. They'll have a certification from Summit. That's my business, my school, because I have a training that's a little bit longer, about 20 hours longer than what is uh, standard to have a hypnosis practice. And in that time, I teach some conversational hypnosis. I teach a little bit of some pain management techniques, and I teach people how to really sit down and have a session with a client. Because usually those are the things that people struggle with that you have to figure out by doing. And I found that people who are confident from the very, very beginning, when they first have a consultation with a client, if they feel confident, that client is going to have the confidence in them. And that already sets the groundwork for a successful outcome. So, confidence and feeling good about what you're about to do and how you're going to do it is really, really important for hypnotists. And I want all of the people who go through my program to have that confidence the moment they sit down.
Mr. Dean, let's talk about your upcoming book, Flow. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. So I'm writing this book now, uh, somewhere beyond three-quarters of the way. And the book is about this flow state, the flow state for everybody, right? For actors, for athletes, uh, uh, business people, everybody has the experience of a flow state, flowing when you're writing, right? And that flow state is a hypnotic state, and it can be induced, brought about naturally by yourself. So, self hypnosis. So, for the athlete who is playing the game beautifully and the ball is going right where he want it every single time, and they think, hey, I'm in the zone. And as soon as they have that thought, there it goes. Now I'm not in the zone. Boy, it would be great to get that back. Well, the fact is, you can get that back because that is exactly that same kind of hypnotic state that you're in when you drive the car. It's the body doing what it knows how to do, and the subconscious mind doing what it knows how to do, and the conscious mind really just being fully present and in the moment and reacting appropriately. A quiet mind that's engaged. So I really, really wanted people to be able to access this information about hypnosis and be able to use it themselves because there's a host of things beyond therapeutic hypnosis that people can do with their subconscious mind. Uh, Therapeutic hypnosis is really good for things like, trauma and quitting smoking, changing patterns, and changing habits. Those are things that it's great to work with a hypnotist because it's very directed. You go in, you address the problems, you address the responses, then see how they do. Maybe you need another session. Maybe they're good with where you are. But outside of that, that hypnotic state is always right there, ready for us, waiting for us. We just need a little bit of guidance and tools to be able to access it. And then, of course, we need to practice that toggling back and forth between a full wakeful state and a hypnotic state. Um, that just takes a little bit of practice, but it's very, very simple to do that. And one of the things I've learned over my career is I have a talent for talking about hypnosis in ways that help people really understand what's happening. And so to be able to put that into a book, I think could reach many, many more people and help them experience that flow. So it's not really a book about How You Do Therapeutic Hypnosis. It's a book about this incredible capacity that we all have to be in our zone, whatever it is, whenever we want.
Mr. Dean, looking forward for that book and hoping for more and more and more empowering books like that. Let's talk about application and effectiveness regarding hypnotherapies. What types of issue or condition do you comply address with hypnotherapy?
Well, too many to mention, but in my practice, as I say, I work with people who have a lot of stress, anxieties, people who have had PTSD and trauma, working with their therapist for those types of things. I do some weight loss, weight management. I do some uh, uh, smoking cessation. I have other hypnotists that I've trained who work with me, and they have their own specialties. I work with people who have IBS and IBD, uh, pain management. I think I said already. So there's a very, very large category of things that can be addressed hypnotically. Essentially, any place where you want to improve or perform differently, act differently, feel differently. For many people who have been really unhappy or uncomfortable or sad or whatever for a long, long time, a part of this application is remembering what it feels like to feel good. And so that is by itself a very, very therapeutic thing that can happen in any session, is to bring someone into a moment when they felt really good and let them just have that break from having felt bad. It also begins creating a framework to build more time feeling good. So uh, there's a lot of things you can do with hypnosis.
Mr. Dean, how do you measure progress and success in your hypnotherapy sessions?
Great question. So we always want to start off with an understanding. For me, Daniel, my sessions are 2 to 2.5 hours long. That gives me a good opportunity to talk to that client and to understand where they are, where they want to be. And that is our success. That's our overall landmark. That's where we want to go. So then we're going to have a conversation, because many people I meet, they've never really felt the way they wanted to feel. They've never really reacted the way they wanted to react. So we're creating something together. We're co-creating. That's one of the things I love about this. Uh, I was an artist for 30 years before I ever went into that watch school. So uh, artistic expression with hypnosis means the client and I are going to co-create this version of them that doesn't exist yet, but is just around the corner. And then how we measure is, for example, if you're a person who has anxiety about social situations, maybe you were able to go to a party and feel calm and relaxed. If you have social anxiety, that's a situation where just going to the grocery store can be problematic or painful. So you were able to go into the grocery store and feel comfortable. For people who have things like IBS, right? Success means I'm not so worried all the time, because that worry and fear causes a lot of the physical reactions that cause the problem. So it's being able to manage worries and fears in situations that that would have been a trigger for me in the past. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, Mr. Dean. How do you integrate hypnotherapy with the other therapeutic modalities, if at all?
Very, very good. So most people who I see have been going to therapy for a while, at least a few years. And therapy is so fantastic and helps give you so many skills. You learn so many tools. But for a lot of people, there's a disconnect between what they absorb consciously in their therapy session and how they actually are able to apply it to the symptom. of whatever the problem is. So in hypnosis, we can take all of that really, really good stuff from your therapy and we can apply it, put it directly into the subconscious mind, sort of a download of that information. Not just a download of information, but a download of information to the part of your mind that actually holds the old responses that were the symptom of whatever was going on. Does that make sense?
Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Dean, what would be your short term and long term goals as a hypnotherapist?
Ah, well, my short term goal is get that book finished. I'm pretty close. Uh, my long term goals are I want to grow the training program. Um, I've learned so much because of this journey that I've had myself with hypnosis. It turns out that having to um, teach myself from the very beginning gave me a really profound understanding of what this is. And this journey that I've taken is the same journey that I ask other people to take with me. And the way that I work is a little different, I think, than many hypnotists. And it's very, very effective. Uh, for example, if I'm working with someone who has a PTSD issue, we're not ever going back and reliving any trauma. We're going to talk about the person who's sort of in between. The trauma happened over here. Today you're here. The person in the middle is the person that needs the help. And we can talk to that part of you that holds that trauma without having to re experience the trauma. And that is something that is so profound for people to understand that I can work on this and not have to. We don't really even need to talk about the actual trauma where it came from because most of the people I see uh, they know they've talked a lot about the trauma and they still have the symptom. So we're going to be focused on the symptom and how we can help you resolve that response. So I want to grow my training program and get more hypnotists out there who use this same approach because, as I said, there's really nothing to be afraid of doing hypnosis. I think a lot of people who know very much about therapeutic hypnosis, their fear is I'm going to have to go relive my trauma, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about that anymore. And uh, the great thing is, we don't have to talk about it. We can talk about it as much or as little as you're comfortable with. So, and still get that result.
Good
And
luck
so,
to your
having more,
goals. Yes, good luck to your goals, Mr. Dean, and
thank you, Daniel.
looking for more success. So, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to one of my audiobooks, people.
Mm,
Audiobooks, Book 101 Review, Volume 1, highly recommended. Book 101 Review Volume 2 selected, and Book 101 Review Volume 3 suggestions available on Audible, people. And of course, one of my self-help books, Threads of Existence, Weaving the Tapestry of Life. Stand
mm,
tall, stand together, breaking the chains of bullying, and life is too short, a journey of discovery, fulfillment, and joy. And one of my climate change book, Earth Fever, Unraveling Climate, and Our Race to Restore Balance. They are all available on Audible and one of the bestsellers. So, Mr. Dean, for my last question is, what advice would you give to someone considering hypnotherapy for the first time?
mm. I would say you need to meet the hypnotist, meet a few people, find somebody who resonates with you. That's a very important part of how we work with people. That connection, that rapport is important so that you can be comfortable and get the results that you're after.
Mr. Dean Benninghoven, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. And we are hoping for your upcoming book. And we are hoping for the best for you. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your school as well as your upcoming book flow?
Yes. Absolutely. You can find my website. It's uh, Summit Hypnosis. That's info, at summithypnosisnw.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Deane Benninghoven, because if you support him, more and more and more hypnotherapies will come, and for sure, more and more and more empowering books to come. So, Mr. Dean, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
M- More to come, people. See you soon. So, Mr.